Today, Justin Trudeau announced that he was going to give $4.5 billion of Canadian taxpayer dollars that we don't have because we're in a deficit situation to a Texas pipeline company so that they could go and build a pipeline somewhere else. Kinder Morgan was prepared to spend about $7.5 billion of private money in Canada. They were prepared to invest to build an expansion of the Trans Mountain pipeline so that more of Canada's energy products could be sold to other markets other than the US, thus ensuring that Canada could have a higher price for its energy products and seeing many jobs created and a large amount of wealth created in the process. Now, how did we get to this point? Well, since Justin Trudeau came into office, he put in place a tanker moratorium, tanker ban, carbon tax. He changed the review process by which major resource projects are reviewed, with creating a lot of political instability in the investment climate. He canceled the Northern Gateway project, which was approved by an arm's length review process. That was a political decision. It wasn't a fact-based decision. And again, that sent a chill into investment in the energy sector. I could go on and on about all of the things that he's done to try and ensure that Canada's energy sector doesn't create product. I mean, he talks about the fact that he's disappointed that he can't phase out Canada's energy sector fast enough, even though we know that it creates a large amount of wealth for all Canadians. So today, his announcement that he was going to give $4.5 billion to Kinder Morgan, and again, Kinder Morgan is going to take $4.5 billion from Canada, become more liquid, and invest that into projects outside of Canada. While now we've spent $4.5 billion in Canadian tax dollars that we don't have to do what? Justin Trudeau claims that this is going to somehow build the pipeline. So here are some questions I have. First of all, Prime Minister, his finance minister did not tell us what the actual construction cost of the pipeline is going to be. In fact, we don't even know how the pipeline is going to be built, if it is going to be built at all. So the fact that we don't know the construction costs, the true cost to Canada, is something that I think is really quite worrisome. We don't really have any details on how this is going to be built out, if it's going to be built out, who's building it out, over what time period, whether or not the permits that are currently in place still apply, and moreover, the Prime Minister, the ownership of this pipeline was never an issue. All that's changed today is now the government has paid Kinder Morgan some money, but we still don't know if the Prime Minister is going to enforce federal jurisdiction to see the project built out, invoking 9210C of the Constitution to ensure that the provincial governments can't obstruct the build out of the pipeline by delaying permits for things like roads that are getting built up to the development site. We don't understand how the Prime Minister is going to enforce the rule of law with regard to protests. We don't understand whether or not the Prime Minister is going to expedite court challenges from the BC government to the Supreme Court. These are all things that the Prime Minister could have done without giving $4.5 billion to a company. But here we are. Make no mistake, this is Justin Trudeau trying to buy his way out of a really bad set of decisions that he's made with regard to Canada's energy sector, and we still don't know what the outcome is going to be. And worse, I think he's made a decision that makes Canada pretty much a socialist country when it comes to big resource projects. What he said today is like, he's bought energy infrastructure. Like, I mean, his father tried to create a crown corporation to nationalize Canada's energy sector. That didn't go well, and here we are again today. I'm very concerned about what that means for attracting investment in other industries in the country, and certainly for any future projects that may or may not happen. I think there's a lot of confusion among the energy sector today about how producers would interact with this. When you're talking about major investments, billions of dollars, the last thing that industry wants to hear is uncertainty. And I think we've got a lot more uncertainty today. So I'm going to go upstairs. I'm in the basement of the House of Commons right now, into question period, and ask a lot of these questions of the Prime Minister. But I think you should all be very skeptical about this. And I think everybody should be holding Justin Trudeau to account for a very expensive decision, frankly, he chased away a lot of private investment from this country. I will always stand with the workers of Canada's energy sector. There's no reason why Canada can't be attracting billions of dollars in investment into our natural resources and have them produced in an environmentally responsible way. In fact, Canada should be, in theory, the most stable political jurisdiction in the world to do business. But today, we're not. It's pretty disappointing. You should be skeptical. Working hard for you in Ottawa. Have a great day.
Speaker, 2.5 years ago, this country saw pipelines being built without a cent of taxpayer dollars going into a socialized, nationalized energy program. Mr. Speaker, Kinder Morgan was prepared to invest billions into the Canadian economy, and that is gone because the Prime Minister politically destabilized the investment climate in Canada. We have no idea how much this pipeline is going to cost to build or how it's going to be built by a man who hasn't successfully managed to do much of anything. Why should the Canadians pay for his failures?
I would ask the member for Don Valley East and others not to be speaking out when someone else has the floor. The Honourable Minister of Finance.
Mr. Speaker, we need to call fiction when fiction happens. What did not happen in the last government? There were no pipelines bringing resources to international markets. The reality is we accept a lower price for our natural resources in this country because...
Apparently there's a problem with the interpretation at the moment. Is the interpretation now working? Is it now? It is now working. Excuse me. Order. Order. I'm going to have to ask the Honourable Minister to restart.
Mr. Speaker, I was talking about a fictional story from the opposite side of the House. Their fictional story is that they got pipelines done. The reality is not one pipeline to international markets. We know this to be true. The reason for the discount on Canadian resources is because of a lack of access to international markets. It's why the Trans Mountain expansion is so important. It's why we're moving forward to invest in those assets. It's why we're de-risking the project to make sure it gets done for Canadians.